Thank you to be invited here to Psycho University. I'm very glad to be here and to have discussion with you. And I was told from my translator that I have to be slow, so I hope I can do it because, of course, like everybody, I'm nervous a little bit. I hope I can fulfill this wish. Okay, there's the first problem with my first sentence here. In my paper I wrote, first I have to admit that I have no empirical data about the Japanese field of comics, but I had some interviews meanwhile here, and they have, of course, there's a faint data that I have now. But nevertheless, I have first impressions about the Japanese field, so this first sentence is not right any longer. Okay. A discussion of sociology of comics, which includes their aesthetics, faces three major difficulties. The first difficulty can be found in the present state of sociology itself. The sociology of comics usually means the analysis of the distribution and circulation, and above all, the reader's market. In a nutshell, the analysis of the social function of comics, but not their aesthetics. This naturalized understanding of the sociology of comics is confirmed by the aesthetics of comics. For instance, Maurice Horn writes in his introduction to this World Encyclopedia of Comics 1999 that it is vital now to develop an understanding of the aesthetics of comics in order to break with sociology of comics. The second difficulty, to understand comics in both an aesthetic and a social way, derives from the different social status which is attached to education and scholarship on the one hand, and the production of comics on the other hand. Nobody can escape the hierarchy of legitimacy caused by the general and long-term power of institutional education in the modern nation-state. Mentioned in passing, it is very striking that literature and theater, which mostly take the highest position in culture, do not require any justification of their specific aesthetic experience. And legitimate art forms like these tend to exclude popular art from educational and academic considerations. A lesser legitimacy in art production means that there are no support by academic consideration or less support. Precisely, this makes such art forms easily accessible. Comics, like other less legitimate or illegitimate, however you take it, the field of power would say it is illegitimate, cultural products as well, provide immediate pleasure. Fans do not need to know the history of comics or the specific techniques of their creation in order to enjoy them. By contrast, people who want to be taken seriously within the institution of art are supposed to have art historical knowledge. Because of its long tradition of history construction, legitimate art is able to dominate the way in which the history of the illegitimate arts is being written. For example, in the 1960s, the first comics exhibition based on thorough historical research was not the first one, but the first one with scientific consulting. This first exhibition was held in France. Its display was fundamentally influenced by the contemporaneous pop art. Single panels were blown up to large-sized pictures, deprived of their context, that is, the respective narrative sequences. Apparently, the symbolic similarity of legitimate art and popular art always tends to trigger a misunderstanding of the aesthetics of low legitimate art. It produces a false recognition of so-called high art, which leads to misjudging the specific value of lesser legitimate art. But illegitimate art has to fight not only for spreading the knowledge of its history, but also for its own way to construct this history. The difference between the different levels of legitimacy is, therefore, an objective structure determining normative judgments. Semiotic theory often treats comics as a system in order to give it a more serious face. It is assumed that the more an analysis followed a logic system, the more serious its object were in regard to institutionally legitimate scholarship. But if omitting the history of strategic struggle for qualification, definition, or legitimacy, a semiotic system of comics may easily appear like an analysis of a dead language. Michel Foucault and Pierre Bourdieu agree that strategies and conflicts are intrinsic components of cultural goods. But whereas in Foucault's theory of power there is no place for discursive autonomy, Bourdieu maintains that autonomy in cultural production is an effect of strategies and fights. According to Bourdieu, a field is not a semantic field of discourse, but a field of symbolic strategies. His field philosophy suggests to understand aesthetic creation as something fundamentally social, which means already the production and not only the reception of artworks is determined by social conflicts. Every artwork is the manifestation of a strategy in relation to other artworks within the same field. Proximity or distance to other positions form the structure, which serves as the condition for strategies to enhance or to preserve one's position in the field. But these strategies are not characterized by a complete freedom in position taking. They are rather historically determined by a specific range of possibility. For instance, it is not likely that an author like Art Spiegelman would hold a job in the workshop of Walt Disney, because their positions in the field are too different.